بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. When we started at the beginning of the month, we categorized everything into different sections. So it says some things were farad, wajib, haram, and these categories, while trying to understand them, we also had another category which we didn't touch upon, which is generally considered as Bidah, which is something which is innovated into the deen, which people do, and they do it thinking that this action will get them reward. However, they are under a delusion when they have these thoughts. So the main basis of this argument is found in the Quran, but more directly is very simply explained in one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated from Aisha radiallahu anha. And this one hadith covers most aspects of what we need to know. Most aspects of what we need to understand are explained in this one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ mentions, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hada ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun." Whoever innovates and adds something extra into this matter of ours, into our deen, ma laysa minhu, which isn't already a part of the deen, fahuwa raddun, then this thing which is innovated into the deen will be refuted, this will be rejected, fahuwa raddun. So from this one hadith we find that the Prophet ﷺ, he gives three conditions for something to be rad, for something to be rejected, for something to be a bid'ah. So the first condition is ihdath, that this is something new. So we'll go through them in order. So when something is new in the religion, something which hasn't been there before. Now this obviously applies generically to everything. So nowadays our car is going to be ihdath, is going to be something which is new. The way that the masjid is built out of baked bricks, this is something new. Even just the simplest of things, many of the things that even the clothes that we wear, this is something which the Prophet ﷺ would not use buttons like this and have the sleeves like this, or even wear glasses. All of these things, these are mahduth, these are new things in the religion. So this is the first thing. So the first condition is that it has to be something new which wasn't done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. However, as well as this, if it's not connected to the religion, then obviously this will not be something which is considered a bid'ah. However, just to understand the point, that it's something which is new and not there from before. The second thing the Prophet ﷺ says is idafa. It has to be ascribed to the religion. Man ahdatha fi amrina hada. He does an innovation in our religion. He makes the innovation within the religion of Islam. This is the condition the Prophet ﷺ makes. So the thing which is new has to be ascribed to the religion. It can't be something which is random. It can't just be made up. It has to be something which specifically is used for the religion of Islam. So this is something, it can't just be just a completely unassociated to Islam. So this is the second thing, which also if it's something which is completely against Islam, then by default obviously this will not be considered part of Islam. If somebody tries to do bid'at in something completely haram, like in fornication or in gambling or in alcohol, in these kind of things, then obviously these things will not be understood. And the third thing the Prophet ﷺ mentions, ma laysa minhu, that this is not from the deen in itself. So sometimes we'll find things which indirectly or directly have some kind of connection to Islam, have some kind of connection to deen. So for example, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, he did not compile the Quran. The Quran was left uncompiled. However, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they thought it was necessary to get the Quran, compile it together so that it is preserved. And now today we read the Mus'haf, which was not there at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So nobody calls this a bid'ah, because indirectly this is preserving one of the fundamentals of Islam. This preserves Islam. The Mus'haf preserves the Quran, which is fundamental for Islam being preserved. So now as Islam has a fundamental, which is that to preserve Islam is one of the fundamentals of Islam, under this, to compile the Quran, this comes under here. So indirectly this is associated to Islam. That's why this would be a part of Islam. That's why this wouldn't be a bid'ah. So just to repeat that, the Prophet ﷺ said, ma laysa minhu, something which is not part of Islam already. There's two ways something can be a part of Islam. One is directly, one is indirectly. So now the compilation of the Quran is indirectly part of Islam. The way it's indirectly part of Islam is because fundamentally one of the fundamentals in Islam which we have is to preserve the religion as much as we can. So here, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the aim was to preserve the religion. So indirectly this was fulfilling the original command of Islam, which is to keep Islam alive. So this is how the preservation of, this is just one example of many examples that we can find of where something happens but indirectly is something, even using the microphone for example, having a transmitter here. Obviously the Prophet ﷺ did not have a transmitter and they would not have adhan in all of their houses, but nowadays we have this advanced thing, and the point is the same. The point is that everybody at home gets to listen to the adhan. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, everybody would listen to the adhan. Making sure that the adhan reaches everybody's house is one of the things which is fundamental to Islam. So now, because this is important, using something like a transmitter which helps the adhan reach everywhere is something which will also be part of Islam like this. So this is just simple examples. These are indirect. So, but there's more direct examples, and the very specific hadith many of us may be aware, it applies in Ramadan, where Umar radiallahu anhu, he came and he saw everybody praying the Taraweeh, and he came and said that everybody should come together and we'll do one Taraweeh instead of everybody praying separately. So then he got everybody together into one Jama'ah, one big Jama'ah, instead of lots of separate Jama'ah, and everybody prayed together. And Umar radiallahu anhu then said that ni'mal bid'ati hadi, he said that this is such a good thing, and this was a direct revival of something the Prophet ﷺ done. Before the Prophet ﷺ, in the first few days of Ramadan, he came himself and he established the Taraweeh. And then he said, the only reason I didn't carry on was because if I carried on, this would become fard on me. So this was his rahmah. So now the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say don't do Taraweeh. The Sahaba carried on praying Taraweeh. And in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu was reviving the same sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is directly the same sunnah. So these two types which can be part of deen. So this is how we understand these kind of things. That generally some people, they would say that sometimes there's good things which we innovate into the deen. But by definition, these things will, people say that if something is described as a bid'ah, then this thing by definition generally, if it's shar'an a bid'ah, if Islamically it's a bid'ah, then this thing will be haram. There's one other hadith which is explained, which we recite every single Friday. فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الحدي حدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So this says that كل محدثة بدعة, that everything innovated is going to be a bid'ah, and then all of this bid'ah is going to be a deviance, and every deviance is in the fire of Jahannam. Essentially saying that everything innovated is going to lead you to Jahannam. So now this is how they connect the two things together. However, we know there's certain conditions for the bid'ah, and this is the stronger wording which we find, that every bid'ah will lead a person into Jahannam. So now when somebody says bid'ah in Islam, this means something which has these three conditions. That is something which is innovated, not at the time of the Prophet, is something made part of deen, and something which has no evidence in the deen to make that allowed. So when these three conditions are met, then it will be considered a bid'ah. By default, generally, some people we find that they're very, very loose, use this terminology. That whenever they see something new, they say this is bid'ah. Why is there hadith on the whiteboard today? This is bid'ah. The Prophet never used whiteboard. We should not use whiteboard. We should use, the tree and ink and things like this. People think like this. So you have to think of all of these things. And sometimes people, nowadays there's certain sects which use this very, very freely. That just everything becomes bid'ah. Just because, obviously, if we use the first condition of the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, that man ahdatha fi amrina, whoever does ihdath, whoever creates something new. So if we stop there, this means every cow will be a bid'ah. All of us are bid'at because we weren't around at the time of the Prophet. All of these things, every person comes under this kind of, everything will come under this category. So that's why it's important we realize that it's quite intricate. It's not so simple. It's not clear as day and night. It's not always easy to identify what is and isn't a bid'ah. In fact, if we look carefully at these three definitions, to identify whether something is a bid'ah, we have to ask the person who's doing it. Otherwise it's impossible. A person can be doing something and he may just be doing it for his own good. He may be doing it for his own sake. He may be doing it for exercise. He may be doing it just because he likes doing it. He may not be doing it for the sake of Islam. And also, when this is the condition, we have to then ask him that, does he think this is a part of Islam? And if he doesn't, then he's just doing it because he wants to do it. He doesn't make it, therefore, a bid'ah. So these are the kind of things we have to be aware of. But also, we have to be cautious that we try and stay away from those things which allow us to fall into bid'ah. One of the things which I wanted to cover was generally after Salah, sometimes I think last year when we first came in Ramadan, after every Salah we do collective dua. Some Imams, they like to do collective dua. Some people don't like to do collective dua. So again, some people then say whenever the Imam starts doing collective dua, they say the Imam is doing Bidah. And some people, when the Imam doesn't do it, they don't like him not doing it. So both things are there. Again, this is something which is disputed. And again, like I mentioned, to define whether it's Bidah is reliant on the person doing it. The action itself does not become bidah. So if every day we done ijtima'i dua, every day after salah, we could do it, and because we're all mashallah very educated people and we sit in our class, it would not become a bidah because we know the legitimacy of the dua. The simple fact is the Prophet ﷺ did not do this, and this is not something which is sunnah. However, to do it is good because then everybody knows that we can do dua like this, and this is the kind of thing. Personally, I don't do it. The main reasons I try and avoid it most of the time, sometimes I do it as well, but most of the time is because one of the problems which happens is, while personally as growing up, it's happened with me, that when you have salah, the Imam does salah, and then afterwards he does dua, and then the only time in your life you ever do dua is going to be when the Imam does dua. So in your own life, dua is then gone. You don't actually have dua in your own life, which is a big problem. So this is one of the main reasons which is why we keep dua, we motivate people to do dua, we advocate dua, we tell people dua is very important, and people should be aware of how dua is a direct connection with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ says, ad-du'a mukhul ibadah. It's the essence of worship. It's one of the most important worships we have. It's our way of talking to Allah. Another thing with doing ijtima'i dua is usually it will be done in Arabic, or you'll have to choose a language. So it may not be our first language. So then half of the dua we haven't understood what it's asking anyway. So this will also take away from the original purpose of dua. Also, dua is something that should be part of our own routine. So because what happens sometimes, if the Imam does it and then we think that this is the one time of the year, or this is the time we all get together and do dua, we have to worry about our own dua. And when do I connect with Allah? How often do I sit down and do? It should be a proper conversation. It should be one of the most beautiful times of the day. This should be the real time when I'm talking to Allah, my real connection with Allah there. And also one thing, I don't use this as evidence but generally if you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he wouldn't do this with the Sahaba. He wouldn't sit after Salah and do ijtima'i dua and tell everyone to do dua. The Prophet ﷺ does mention that after the first Salah, du'as are accepted. So it's a time to do dua, definitely time to do dua. So the reason Imam sometimes does dua is to teach everyone this is time for dua, do dua. This is the reason that this is done. So it's important we realize that this is not the only time for dua either. The Prophet ﷺ in his teachings, he teaches as when dua is accepted. On Fridays, the times which we have when du'as are accepted. Every time after Salah, between the adhan and the iqamah, before Salah, the dua. It doesn't mean we all start doing collective dua then as well. We try and educate everyone. All these times du'as are accepted. Du'as are accepted at tahajjud time. Any time a person prays 2 nafal, then after this the dua is accepted. Inside Salah, at the end of Salah, du'as are accepted. So many times we have throughout the day. So by sometimes only doing dua at one time, we forget all these other times. So it's important to realize whenever we need Allah, Allah is going to be there for us. And we can ask dua for Allah and get Him to solve our problems. Speak to Him in English, Bangla, Urdu, Gambian, whatever language we're comfortable in. We speak to Him in that language. We speak to Him personally. This is our median direct to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is, one of the things, and these are just some of the points I thought we'd mention. But generally it's a simple thing, and it's not something we should ever make a big deal out of. And this is one of the greatest things. Just to mention one more thing, is the levels that we have in Islam. If we take something out of its level and put it higher up, so something, if it's mustahab, or something is sunnah, to treat it as if it's fard, this also can be considered as a bid'ah as well, because you're changing Islam. It's something which isn't that important, you're giving it a lot of importance. Things which are important should be given importance. Throughout the year to come to the masjid for salah is sunnatul mu'akkada. It's very, very important. We're always rewarded. It's something which is sunnah. So always to do this is sunnah. To pray Fajr salah is fard. So now when somebody on the 29th night they come to the masjid and they think that Khatmul Quran is taking place, so I'm going to pray the 20 rakats of Tarawih, which is sunnatul mu'akkada. Very good. But it's not fard. And then a person is going to do this dua for half an hour, and he thinks this dua is now going to, for the next day he doesn't pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr or Maghrib, and he doesn't even, this is the thing. It's important to have everything in its place, because Islam is very structured. Islam keeps us going throughout the year. So every single day of the year to come to the masjid is good. So now if we overemphasize on this and make this some next fard, even more than fard, that if somebody misses the last dua of Ramadan, then it's like he's mahroom from Islam. It's very important to be careful in our wording, how we approach things, how we understand things. This is something good, mashallah. We finish the Quran, we make du'as are accepted, we do it, fine. But this is not something which is narrated from hadith, not something which is sunnah, but something we are rewarded for, inshallah. So something we have hope in. But we have to realize that more important than this is going to be Fajr. More important than this is my connection with Allah. More important than this is making sure that I actually get taqwa in Ramadan. These are the things which Allah has had in our lives. And generally making sure that continuously, every day, in different times of my life, whenever I have a difficulty, my taqwa which I've developed in Ramadan lets me always talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is because Allah's for me, Allah's there for us. Allah opens Himself up and says, whenever you need something, come to me and talk to me. So we can't just say, I'm going to wait till next year, 29th of Ramadan, again to talk to Allah. For a whole year, I'm not going to talk to Allah anymore. We have to realize that Allah's for me every single day of the year. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he's very, very harsh in his wording of bid'ah. Because bid'ah takes us away from real Islam. This is one of the problems. When a person treats something as which is not sunnah or not mustahab, and he treats it as sunnah, mustahab or fard, then he'll give preference to that, and Islam changes as a result of this. A person thinks this is very, very important, and the things which are actually important in his life, which is to be a nice person, which is to have good akhlaq, ghiba is haram, to make sure that he doesn't hurt somebody else, he doesn't say evil, all of these things go out of the window, and a person just thinks that coming for one night he's going to change his life. So this is why Islam is very, very important. This is why by a person, the Salaf used to say that we never see a bid'ah coming inside the community, except that because of the bid'ah coming, a sunnah will be removed. We don't see a bid'ah coming in except the fard will be less value. If a person treats sunnah too much value and not more than he gives the value to fard, then we'll see that Islam will be distorted. This is why it's so important to treat everything on its level, and this is why education is so important. But this is generally that's the summary of more or less everything. Is a little bit complex. I tried to explain as much as I could, but also it's important we try and understand as much as we can about our religion. What is the status of everything inside our religion? And we try and educate ourselves as much as we can, and we try and stick to the Quran and the Sunnah, and really we try and become people of Allah. When we're speaking to Allah ourselves, we won't need so much other things. We won't need to be proven that Allah, we develop our own love for Allah. We speak to Allah, we get our hajat fulfilled by Allah. Then we won't need somebody else who says that Allah doesn't exist. Allah just solved all your problems. It's not going to be easy for somebody to come and convince you that Allah's not there anymore. So these are the things that we aim to achieve, and this is what the Quran overall talks about. We have a very long book, many of us don't know it all by heart, but if we overview of it, the amount of times Allah says get taqwa 200 times in the Quran. So this one thing, this one sifa, if you get it into our heart, this is the one thing Allah repeatedly emphasizes on. So if we get this into our heart, it will change our lives. So we try and make effort for these kind of things. So I make dua Allah gives me and all of us the ability to understand and act upon Allah's message.
Yes, regarding the dua you say, like our country, every first salat is like a force. People don't even move until the dua is. So the problem is that you need to be educated, the people. I asked some of the imam in my country, and they actually, I said, can you tell me about that? And he said, look, this is, it's not in Sunnah, but we can't do it because if there's big fitna when it starts, I lose my job, and that's it. Most of the imam in our country is not very well off.
It's very education.
So that's why most of them education is
ignorance. So the thing is, when we speak of Islam, we speak of Islam together, combined. So that apparently there is nothing wrong when we sit down and pray to Allah together. As for example, some years ago, one gentleman, a friend is hosting it in Central Australia. We are visiting Kolkata came over here, and as we finished the prayer, he just turned to me and said, why did you have to do the dua? He said, get up. So I said, I'm not a alim, I'll make you talk to answer. So the question is that I find as far as to be right innovation. But when we pray to Allah, we pray Muslim together, Tawafana Muslim, Islam, all together. All Muslim together. So I meant there is nothing wrong.
The issue.
We pray together, nothing wrong. But as long as we understand it, it is not incumbent on us after every prayer to pray in the together. So I join the prayer and not understanding that, but it's up to me.
Yeah.
And I find it pleasure. So that all my Muslim brethren sitting together. One of them will be a better person than me, and his intercession will be accepted.
So the only issue arises is when, like you mentioned, that when everybody thinks is necessary. So here, alhamdulillah, in Colchester, we all, mashallah, educated. I don't do it and nobody has a problem. The problem would be if it keeps going on for a long time, and then the Imam doesn't do it, and then people think that's wrong. So this is when the issue generally arises. So to keep it not going, and to encourage everybody to do dua is the easiest way to have this solution. Obviously dua is amazing, and after salah is when it's accepted, and to do it together means everybody is accepted. And generally the point is that the one person can do it and one person cannot do it. Or two people can be doing it. One person may think it's sunnah, and the other person will know that it's not sunnah. So the person who thinks it's sunnah, he's got a bit of a bid'ati mentality, because he's not understood that this is not something which the Prophet ﷺ would do. But the person who's understood that it's not sunnah, they're both doing the same action, but one will be doing a bid'ah and one will not be. So it's just education. As long as everybody's aware that it's not from the Quran Sunnah, it's just something which is done for the facilitation and education, then that's something which is fine.